What is up, my Ginger League? Welcome back to Super Ginge. We're going to have another vicious villains fight for you. But before we get into the actual characters that we're going to be up against, let me introduce the contestants. Well, you know him. He's my young apprentice, Kevin Tierney. Kev, how you doing, my man?
Not so bad. It's weird you calling me young apprentice, considering I'm older than you.
Yeah. When it comes to podcasting wise, you have much to learn. Much to learn, my friend.
I'm getting there.
Yes, you are indeed. Well, and to my left, when I'm looking at it on the screen, it's a good friend of mine. He was appeared as a guest on That Mental Ginger Show. Also, in one of the comedy sketches, said that he was the evil Andrew Durning. Well, it is Christopher John Stephen, a good comedian and friend. How you doing, my man?
Hello. Good to see you, Andrew. Hello, Kevin. Yeah, I'm absolutely buzzed to be back here again. And very, very happy to be here as advocate.
Yes, you've came back to another one of my mad podcasts, which really makes me wonder, is it something to do with the gingerness?
I got to say it's attractive to me. I can't deny that. So.
Yeah, definitely. I was saying before, Kev, before we went on, I was like, it's like the contrast of Ginger's is like he's got the great head of hair all slicked back to perfection, and mine's just buzz cutted straight down. It's like, I've got to ask Chris, as a fellow Ginger, with the recent at the time of this recording, we'd had a recent good spell of warm weather. Does your hair go fuzzy in the warm weather?
No, tough question that, because I mean, I've always cut it short technically, but you notice sort of let it grow out a bit, and I know it goes sort of slightly in the phrase. I remember when I was young, I used to have the proper sort of curly hair look, look like Little Orphan Annie, basically. But I think it's sort of more. I think it's sort of more frizzing out now. So probably look, if I did let it grow out, I'd probably look like a cross between Mick Hucknall and that girl with the glasses in the Evie ads.
Brilliant. Well, that's what I find. Like, see, the second it gets that bit warmer, my hair just starts to go that kind of just out the way, and when it's longer, I look like a reject for a Beatles tribute band. It's horrible.
I think you went the route one, and you've got the shaved head, which is great, but never order dry roasted peanuts at the bar if you do that. That's just my little tip there.
But actually, it was when COVID hit, and I was due to get a haircut, and then everything shut down. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to shave my head. I just shaved it all off. Didn't tell the wife. She was not happy, but to say the least. And then I just kind of stuck with it, because I used to shave my head when I was in high school and stuff, because that was like, extent ginger bullying. I'm like, oh, I don't want it around. Shave it and try and get rid of it, and also save me a bit of money because I'm a tight ass. But it's kind of stuck now, so I'll need to ask my future boss at Broad TV, Frank, whether I have to get it expertly styled, because if so, that needs to go into my payments. Well, I cannot afford it. Well, I cannot afford that. I'll stick with the razor if I have to.
I don't think I'll be able to, because I've got this.
Yeah, well, that's something that I've wanted to ask you, Kev. Since we're on the tangent of hair, before we jump in, we do, as you know, Christopher, we do love tangents in anything that I do, because I am fucking nuts, and we all know this by now. Well,
as am I.
Yes. So, have you ever straightened your hair, or have you ever bored like your wife's GHDs?
I have. Aye.
Yes.
When I was younger, I was in high school, and it wasn't as long as this. It's just gone. But I used to straighten it every day, and then just one day I was like, I can't arse with this. And it was as long as this.
Yeah.
Enough, and I just shaved it off, went into school, and everybody's like, "What'd you do?"
Wow. But when I was in primary, I had like the big Harry Potter style glasses and the really bad like bowl cut. It wasn't even done with a bowl; it was just the way it grew out. And I just and like one of the days, like I went in, and the opticians had said, "Look, what you're needing to sort, it's corrected itself as much as it can, because it was a lazy eye." And wasn't as good technology wise. They just went, okay, that's you. You don't need the glasses for a while now. Took the glasses off, and I was like, I'm going to go and get a haircut. And I got it nicely styled and everything. I went into school the next day. People thought I was a new student. Because they were like, oh, do you need us to show you where the lunchroom is? And I'm like, guys, it's me.
No.
They're like, no, that's no Andrew. Andrew's the big geek with the Harry Potter glasses and the weird hair. And I was like, I got rid of my glasses and I got a haircut. Like, no. Well, but for about 3 days, they did not think that I was Andrew until they started questioning where Andrew was. But it was always fun. And of course, like my best mates knew who I was. Like, I just told them to get in the act if this was going to happen. Anyway, enough about my madness. We're here to talk about like the good madness, like the super villains or vicious villains episodes. And it's a battle of the doctors. One thing we realized when Christopher had put up with some suggestions for our super fights and vicious villains, how many super villains have advanced degrees? We realized this. Yeah, we watched this. I watched that in Big Bang Theory, and I was like, never thought of that. And then I just seen so many more, and I was like, wow, this is why I'm not smart enough to get like a degree.
Reed Richards alone, he's got about 7, I think.
Wow.
By the 80s, he had like 7. So it could have had more by the time the 90s and 2000s came.
Yeah.
Because he's one of the most intelligent out of all the superheroes.
Yeah, unless you watch Multiverse of Madness. Let's not go there.
Actually, if it pleases the judge, I've got a little bit of a presentation I'd like to show you guys just to sort of kick things off.
Right. Well, we'll go into the slides. So first of all, tell us who you will be arguing for then, Christopher.
I will be arguing the case for one Dr. Manhattan, aka Dr. Jonathan Osterman.
Hey, the good bit of Watchmen. Well, I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it.
Yeah.
So the presentation will be up. So for anybody that is listening on audio only, describe the presentation that you're presenting just now.
What I'm going to sort of present is I've thought long and hard about sort of which doctor to be an advocate for, because as we mentioned, there's quite a lot of sort of doctors to pick from. So I'm going to pause a little bit to make sure the sort of technology works. I don't know if it will. Yeah, I don't think we can screen share. That's a bit of a bugger.
Don't worry. That's what the power of editing is for, my friend. Let you describe what is there, and I will add it in post, as they say.
Excellent. So, essentially, I've made a quick list of picking the right doctor for the job. So, there's quite a lot of contenders in there. Obviously, they have good and evil qualities, certainly. I mean, just going through the list, you've got Fraser and Niles Crane, Dr. House, Miranda Bailey, Vivian Thomas, Dr. Frankenstein from Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein, Young Frankenstein, the Doctor from Doctor Who, and the Doctor from Star Trek Voyager. I mean, that could go on.
Yes. There's so many doctors from Star Trek alone that could cover that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, sort of got far too much contenders in the fact that people say that the Doctor from Star Trek Voyager is better than Dr. Leonard Bones McCoy. It's just so difficult to sort of make a determination.
Now that is a very good one. That's one. Well, if we start to branch out into the sci-fi genre, as we've touched on before, that'll be a great one. Bones v. EMH. That would be a good one.
So what I decided to do was narrow them down with a couple of different categories, and I sort of thought off the top of my head what was the need to pick the right doctor. So I sort of first off, I really narrowed it down and said, and I got rid of real people or people with descendants that might sue the podcast.
Sounds about
which
right.
Would be a problem for us. Let's be quite honest.
Yeah, well, at this precise moment, it's not monetized yet, so I ain't got jack shit.
Well, there we go. So it's a shame because there's a lot of good doctors that I had to get rid of at this point. In particular of note, Mohammedan bin Zakaria al-Razi, who was the first man who discovered smallpox and is known as the father of pediatrics.
Wow.
And of course, the spin doctors who had that magnificent hit in the 90s, Two Princes.
Definitely.
However, at this moment, I've also sort of been able to get rid of Neil Dr. Fox and Dr. Harold Shipman, so it's not all bad news.
This is definitely going into your stand-up routine, isn't it? You're practicing right now.
Yeah, I fancy myself as the new Dave Gorman with regards to the slideshow, so it might work, it might. From that, we move to doctors who would be struck off immediately. And at this point, we'll lose Dr. John Zoidberg, Dr. House, John J.D. Dorian from Scrubs.
Oh, now that is fighting talk right there.
And and very much want to point out that I'm losing Michaela Quinn, aka Dr. Quinn, medicine woman at this point.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true. What about Doogie Howser? Is he on there?
Doogie Howser is definitely is on the list, but again, I've sort of taken him out because you know, I think the British Medical Association, there is a sort of age requirement, and I find it difficult to believe. Given his later career, I think he's very much against the side of good medicine than for. I'm literally trying to remember Neil Patrick Harris. Yes.
Yep. Neil Patrick Harris.
He's in there somewhere. I remember his name.
And in fairness, like if we had Neil Patrick Harris's Doogie Howser in a super fight, that would count as child abuse. The amount of times he would get smacked the crap out of.
That's quite a good point. At this point, I got rid of all the emotional wrecks, and I managed to sort the list quite a bit because I lost everybody from Grey's Anatomy in one foul stroke. I lost Dr. Frankenstein from Young Frankenstein, although I kept Dr. Frankenstein because, for the most part, he kept it together, I think.
Yeah.
I had to lose Dr. Stephen Strange here, all of them. I won't spoil the Multiverse of Madness, people might not have seen it yet. And sadly, again, at this point, I had to lose the Doctor from Star Trek Voyager because the amount of emotional entanglements he got to when he amounted to nothing, when he started his life was nothing more than the NHS Direct website was saying some character. Right. At this point, I'm going to be very, very discriminating and get rid of things I've never watched or read. So that leaves us with 6 candidates for my money. Dr. John Watson, the Doctor from Doctor Who, Dr. Manhattan, Leonard Bones McCoy, Dr. Hannibal Lecter, and Victor Von Doom. Now, a lot of these will be covered in later podcasts, but the decider for me, and this really, really hurts as a big Doctor Who fan, as you can see,
yes,
I had to get rid of everybody who's been at least one crap movie or adaptation. And, you know, Dr. John Watson's great, but if you haven't seen Sherlock Holmes in the USA, where Roger Moore plays Sherlock Holmes, sadly do that. The Doctor from Doctor Who, I've got a TARDIS in the room over there, and I'm getting rid of it. But the TV movie, the bit where he's half human on his mother's side, broke my heart to get rid of him. Leonard Bones McCoy, very difficult to get rid of him. Any odd number Star Trek movie is shit, as this we know. Dr. Hannibal Lecter, we've all seen the one with Julianne Moore. It's not believable. And Victor Von Doom, of course, all the Fantasy Four movies prove me wrong. So for these reasons, I could say that we go from all the doctors out there to Dr. Manhattan.
Well,
and that's, again, mainly because I have only seen 3 episodes of the Watchmen TV series, but I'm sure my opponent's really going to grill me for that in a sec. Yeah,
well, that is the biggest long road for a shortcut I have ever had in my entire life. Well, I was like, who's it going to be? It could have just been Dr. Manhattan. But no, you went there, my friend. Like, you could prepare a presentation. You have went into your arguments. You have clearly thought this through. Whereas I just go, Kev, this is the guy you're arguing for.
Yeah,
but
I think actually.
Yeah, and Kev just goes, okay. So, well, also there is no presentations on our side, which is great because there'll be less fucking editing for me. Well, so tell me, Kev, who are you taking to town with this one?
Well, I think it's going to be a tough one against Dr. Manhattan, but I am going to fight for Dr. Otto Octavius, otherwise known as Doc Ock.
Yes, definitely. Well, a very good choice, I have to say, by me. Well, and I think this particular Doctor's one, because we do have a Doctor's Part 2, but it will be on the super fights rather than Vicious Villains. Well, but there could have been a case to put them both in the super fights category. Well, but because they do have kind of heroic tendencies, as I'm sure you will discuss in your arguments. But I felt for over the course, what kind of looking at both and swatting up on them myself, I feel that it was more justified to put them into the Vicious Villains category. So, for anybody that is listening to this for the first time, first of all, my condolences. Second of all, let me explain the rules to you. So we cover our superheroes or vicious villains, and we break them down into 3 categories. Cultural relevance, which is how they have impacted pop culture and media as a whole. Abilities, both physical and mental, are included. And the best one, the one that I really love, is universal significance. And this is where if you took this prospective character out of their universe, if you took Dr. Manhattan out of Watchmen, if you took Octavius out of Spider-Man and Marvel, how would that impact their greater universes as a whole? The rounds are decided by myself. They are not decided based on my own personal preferences of the characters. They are based on the arguments and who I feel has pulled out the best argument out of the 2. There's also been some recent, what we call Nick Cage moments, where that is just essentially the trump card, where if they pull that out, the argument has been wiped. I may include that in as like an instant shutdown for going forward. But right now, it's just being kept as like the little ace card in the back. But let me know in the comments, guys. What would you think? Would you like to see like an instant Nick Cage card slam? Or would you rather stick to the format we've got? Let us know in the comments below. So we shall start off, my friends, if you are both ready, with round 1, which is cultural relevance. So, Christopher, as you are the guest, we will let you go first. So how do you feel Dr. Manhattan has impacted our cultural relevance, both in a pop culture sense and in media platform sense?
Excellent. Well, I'd say I think it's been a massive impact, and it mainly stems from the fact that the man is an actual doctor of atomic physics. Now, when I was sort of first asked to do this podcast, I did think that obviously I came up with Dr. Manhattan and Andrew came in the idea because I did sort of share a lot in common with regards to that. Andrew knows from my appearances on the absolutely stunning Mental Ginger podcast that I spent a good amount of time at the Centre for European Nuclear Research. I was a research student there for a good 3 months. So, like I say, I thought he's probably thinking that I'm a good advocate for Dr. Manhattan because I know my way around atomic physics. I mean, to be fair, when I spent all that time in Geneva, I did go to a lot of Swiss Irish pubs because it's the cheapest alcohol available at the time. And when that didn't work, I went over to the border with France and found the nearest Netto, which was in another country, so could get cheap lager back. So maybe there's not that much to differentiate it from that. But, you know, I like a challenge, so I'm going to give it a try. So like I say, Dr. Manhattan, aka Jonathan Osterman, he has a PhD in atomic physics from Princeton University. He used it to the betterment of mankind after formerly wanting to become a watchmaker, but dissuaded from that profession by his father because he knew then that the need sort of ideas and stasis in nuclear physics because of the sort of impending things that were going to happen. He's even called Dr. Manhattan because of the Manhattan Project. But I think the main sort of thing we can take from the science of Dr. Manhattan is the way he represents himself. Because as we know, Dr. Manhattan represents himself with a hydrogen symbol that he emblazons on top of his forehead. He picked that for himself. It's, you know, it's one of the most complex elements in the world, but yet it's humble. It's simple. It's like the simplest element in the periodic table. And it says great strides about how that we relate to the human being because there's so many other choices out there. I mean, just sort of looking at that, we've got this sort of symbol here, this sort of hydronic element with the symbol for arsenic laced with hydrogen, which, as any good chemist will tell you, is the symbol for our soul, the element.
Brilliant.
I mean,
there was a joke coming.
What happened if he called himself Dr. Arsehole? And, there's even worse that can be found. Again, sorry for the audio podcast, but I'm showing you in I'm showing a mathematical I'm showing a chemical equation in the spoon there. That's set with "you'll be" put in front of it. That's the formula for coming tonight, or "you'll be coming tonight."
Air 5. Air 5. That was an Air 5, my friend. That was an Air 5.
Like I say, we relate to him because we relate to the physics and chemistry around the world. He's significant because it's right in there with the facts.
Right. So, Kev, how do you feel that Doc Ock has impacted culturally?
Well, culturally, he has been one of the most used villains against Spider-Man. There's only been another 2 or 3 that have been in just as many. And also, Doc Ock took over as Spider-Man. He was the superior Spider-Man.
Mm.
When Peter Parker died, he took over as the superior Spider-Man and done a better job as Spider-Man until Spider-Man came back to life and then swapped bodies again. And, you know.
Mm. Yeah, there was certainly an interesting thing around that one in particular, the superior Spider-Man. And interesting that you say that he was actually, that he was better. What justify your point on that one? So a lot of people will have a debate about that.
A lot of people will, but the way he was better is he didn't have qualms about stopping people by killing them because he knew that for the greater good, they had to be stopped and therefore had to die. Because if they catch them, put them away, they break out.
Mm.
He knows that because he's done that. He's been put away. He's broke out, and he's like, how do I stop them for good?
Mm.
I get them to a point where they can't fight anymore, and they die from their injuries. So he doesn't really kill them. He just takes them to a certain point where they can't win, and then they die.
So essentially, it's not murder; it's manslaughter.
It's yeah.
Well, that's a culpability.
Superior Spider-Man was more vigilante than superhero.
But as we had touched on with Spider-Man, the whole thing about him is the great power comes great responsibility. That's the kind of arc of Spider-Man. But when it comes to Doc Ock, give us the cultural relevance around him as a person. How did he come to be in the Spider-Man verse for any complete noobs that may be tuning in right now?
Well, he was doing an experiment and it went wrong, and he blamed Spider-Man.
Sounds about right. But why did they blame Spider-Man?
Spider-Man blew up something. Well, he stopped something from blowing up, but it blew up his experiment at the same time, and he blamed Spider-Man. So, how dare you? So he decided to go on a warpath and kill Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. Well, in fairness, any man that wants to go out and kill a teenage boy is usually okay in my book.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you know my humor by now. You know that I was only kidding about that. Well, I'd kill them before that. So when we go into the back to Dr. Manhattan, and for the type of relevance of physics and of his chemical symbols, there was great arguments there. But as the character himself, and I know we'll touch on the abilities in the next round, but as the character himself, how do you think he has impacted the pop culture zeitgeist? Because I mean, if you say Dr. Manhattan, there's a hierarchy of nerds and dorks that will know, but the geeks not so much. Geeks are more the kind of chic what will know your base level. How would you be able to sway them to try and check out Dr. Manhattan and what he's done?
Now that's an interesting question because people obviously considered the Watchmen movie quite sort of niche in its day, but I think it's one that sort of gravitated to as a cult following in times in sort of times future, and I think put it this way, I don't think if you watch the movie that you can ever truly listen to the song Hallelujah the same way ever again. Now,
yes, definitely.
That's only indirectly put in place by Dr. Manhattan, although it is put in place because she's just going and hooking up with the former Flame and all that. So, And he sees time, past, present, future, the same thing. So I think he knew what was going on very early on.
Yeah.
And
the Hallelujah song, I'd say that's less
quite a great way to.
The Hallelujah song, though, I would say that is a less a Dr. Manhattan thing, more of that's more of a Zack Snyder thing with the Hallelujah song. I would definitely say. I mean, especially when we got the Snyder Cut, and that was the first advert and it was done there. But in fairness, the first thing I thought of when I heard that song was that scene.
Well, there you go.
But definitely. But both very good arguments. So we road tested this in one of the previous episodes. So I'm going to try and do a succinct sum up of your arguments. So a couple of sentences, Max, to kind of drive home your point of why your character is more culturally relevant than the other. Kev, we will go to you for Doc Ock.
Well, he's more culturally relevant because near enough every franchise of Spider-Man iterations, they've been Doc Ock. Even the new ones, they've brought him back. Even in The Amazing Spider-Man, he's named. He's not in it as a character, but he's named at Oscorp a couple of times. You see a file with his name. So they were building that up for him to be there. In the comics, he's always around. You can't get away from him. He's always there in the background. You're always hearing about him. He's always the next person to come after Spider-Man. And he tried to marry Aunt May.
And in fairness, if we watch the recent MCU version of Aunt May, we all wanted to marry her.
Yeah,
we can totally understand that. We're all guys. We're all taking men. But we can still say it and not feel guilty. So, Christopher, to you, a couple of sentences. Dr. Manhattan, cultural relevance. Sell your point.
Well, like I've said, I think it's all good for us to know a bit more about nuclear research, and as the whole ethos of the Watchmen movies. They talk about the minutes to midnight. The minutes to midnight are the closest to midnight that they've ever been, and that's based on a papers from the International Institute for Nuclear Research, which you never know about if you'd sort of go that organically. So, I think it's good to have a healthy sort of digest of all the sort of facts and figures available to it. And I think that's what Watchmen does for us. But if you don't believe me, I'm sure there'll be plenty more arguments coming tonight.
Nice callback, my friend. Nice callback. Now, before I make my decision, I have to say both argued very well. Christopher, you brought a different style to the arguments that has not been done on the podcast yet. It is great. It's so unique and it's so fresh. Well, I've even watched even the things that I had inspiration from for doing this. Did not go into the levels that you did. Massive credit to you, my friend. You've done so well. Kev, again, I think, did you play a little bit of a Nick Cage card with the taking over the Spider-Man? It felt like that was a Nick Cage moment.
It was setting up for one.
There could be could there be a double Nick Cage? Well, I think that this. I can't remember if this happened in the last.
I think he's just powering up the claws, and then he's going to strike the claws later on.
He's teasing. He is teasing. Well, it's why I'm still hesitant to put him onto the host bench, because he's such a good arguer. No one can pull a Nick Cage like Kevin Tierney. Not even Nick Cage at this point. So it was very tough. Both arguments. Like I said, Christopher, yours was such a unique take, such a breath of fresh air. It was very engaging. And I liked the visuals. And also your visuals beforehand, which was also really good. Kev, you got it straight away. Because the only thing I would say, Christopher, as much as your argument was great, the cultural relevance is about how it's affected the pop culture and the masses as a whole. While for physics, very good points made. I didn't even I twigged. I knew some of it, but if I didn't know bits and pieces about it, then it wouldn't have had as much a massive effect on the pop culture side as I would expect the kind of normies to follow. It's a way to sway it around. Kev basically summed it up by he's in everything, even the dud Spider-Man's he's in it, and he's actually beaten Spider-Man in one of frankly most critically acclaimed comic stories that I have read. So for this round, I have to say that Kev takes the lead 1-0.
Okay, well done, Kev.
Yep.
So now we move on to round 2, my friends, and this is abilities. This is where we look at the character's physical and mental attributes and pit them against each other. This is the closest to a straight up who would win in a fight. Now, Kev, since John had Christopher John Stephen, my apologies, Christopher John Stephen.
Right.
Well, I totally mixed up your name. That is the worst. That's a rookie mistake. I've been making a lot of those lately. Well, I'll let Kev.
One of the drawbacks. It's one of the drawbacks of having 3 first names as your name. Don't worry about it.
Definitely. It's like, because I remember having to clarify that with you when we first did that Metal Ginger show. I'm like, is it what? Are you okay with just Christopher John? You're like, Christopher John. I'm like, okay, Christopher John it is. We have to acknowledge that. So since Christopher John Stephen went first the last time, it now passes the baton over to you, Kev. Abilities both physical and mental for Dr. Otto Octavius. The floor is yours.
Well, for abilities, it's essentially his brain. He's one of the smartest people in Marvel's universe, villain or hero. He is one of the top 5, I think, at least it is. So it's mostly his inventions that stop him from being harmed. He's built his own personal force field from his octopus arms. He's adjusted them to have like different abilities. Different things can fire out of them. He's got ice things to freeze the webs. He's got foam that stops Spider-Man from able to fire his webs.
Something I've got to ask as well about, just from like a noob's kind of perspective. But in Spider-Man 2, where the octopus arms had their own sentience, was that like a departure from the comics, or was it comic accurate?
There was a bit of that in the comics. It wasn't sentience. It was like a spider sense, essentially. They were connected to him, so his senses were heightened because of his intelligence, and they were working off of his intelligence, so he could feel something coming, and they would react to it.
So it wasn't kind of like an 8 personalities for the octopuses like in Spider-Man. It was more like his instincts.
It was more like his instincts. It's just everything for him was heightened because of his intelligence, and the thing that made them fuse to him stopped him from having any morals, really. So everything was heightened. His ability, he's gained a bit more strength as well from them, because he doesn't need the actual ability to work out. Everything's done mentally with him. There is different iterations where he is actually frail, and it is them that's sentient. That was one of the one-shot Spider-Mans, and it was actually Spider-Man that crippled him. Something went wrong, and he built these things. He was in a wheelchair, and he built these automatic legs, and it was them that were sentient. It was like an AI that was controlling them, and they sent him mental to try and kill Spider-Man.
Wow.
I think that was in like the late 80s or early 90s, that one.
An interesting bit of trivia, my friend. I did not know that. Thank you. Well, and since we are talking about intelligence and we're talking about like these villains, for Christopher John Stephen, we have to jump to Dr. Manhattan, and based on the Watchmen movie, I would say that's one of the rare occasions where the bad guy wins.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because I really don't think you can pigeonhole about Dr. Manhattan as a bad guy, because he's not actually evil. He's just sort of misunderstood. For a start, he was tricked by his best friend Adrian Veidt. He was, even so much so that when he went to confront him, he was disintegrated by him and framed. And we'll not just talk about the movie here. We'll also talk about the original comic book. He was framed from the attack in New York. In the movie, it was obviously the attack in everywhere with his technology, but in the comic book was the attack in New York due to a monster, which Dr. Manhattan was responsible for bringing. And what does he do? He realizes that, things might be a little bit better, and the world might just be a little bit kinder if he takes the rap for it. Is that the action? Is that an evil action? It's not evil actions. Okay, he's a supervillain, but he's comfortable with that. It's his lot in life.
Yeah, it's one of the things that does make a supervillain really good. Like, no matter what genre, is that you can empathize with them. It's why people love Magneto. It's why people love the interpretation of Thanos in the MCU, because there are guys out there, comedians that we know, Chris, that have actually said, I get his point. If half of you fecked off, I'd be okay with that. So that's what really does make a good supervillain, is that in their mind, they don't think that they are actually the villain. They think that they are the hero of their own story, and that's
very true.
But when it comes to Dr. Manhattan's powers and his abilities, both his physical and his mental,
right? So
aside from the fact that he has no clothes,
we'll get onto that in a sec. Yeah. But for those of you who don't know, Dr. Manhattan gained his abilities from his early life as Dr. Jonathan Osterhagen, because he was trapped in a test chamber, which was designed to alter particles at nuclear level to disintegrate them. So what happened was he got trapped in the test chamber, and a nice, sweet idea, because he was trying to retrieve a watch for his then partner at the time, and got disintegrated into bits. And then over the next coming months, he sort of slowly appeared back together. And then when he appeared in the form of what would be called Dr. Manhattan. And he gained the following abilities. And if you want a caption here, Nick Cage moment coming, feel free to do so.
Oh, the confidence. I'm loving it. The
abilities of Dr. Manhattan. Flight, levitation, force field generation, invulnerability, self-regeneration, self-sustenance, intangibility, size alteration, telepathy, telekinesis, teleportation, dimensional travel, precognition, retrocognition, clairvoyance, self-duplication, superhuman strength, superhuman senses, X-ray vision. The second page. Telescopic vision, microscopic vision, infrared vision, thermal vision, immortality, photokinesis, power distribution, radiation production, molecular acceleration, molecular reconstruction, energy construct creation, omni manipulation, energy protection, matter manipulation, energy manipulation. Third page. Omnipotence, power of creation, omniscience, omnipresence, biovision, biofusion, reality alteration, genius level intellect, elemental control, subatomic perception, subatomic control, science manipulation, disintegration, chronokinesis, electrokinesis, thermokinesis, time travel, cosmic awareness, and shapeshifting.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah. I'm know how we were talking earlier on about how I was thinking we might just do like a Nick Cage moment slam and then move on to the next round. You've done the very first Nick Cage slam.
Boom.
Yep.
That was not only the fact that you had 3 pages worth of abilities, the fact you were able to rhyme them off in almost bare naked lady style speed. And I know how tough that is because I sing bare naked ladies in karaoke. So I know how tough that is to get your tongue around all those lyrics and get around all those powers. 3 pages worth. You didn't even mention the fact that he's got of just the sheer power of his intellect alone. Everything else that tied into it. And the fact that you had Kev rightly nodding along and applauding you afterwards, you have created the first Nick Cage slam, my friend. It has been done. This has been the quickest abilities round on record so far. Coming out swinging for the second round. My God, I'm sorry, Kev. He disintegrated you like Dr. Manhattan does.
He did.
Man, that was.
I knew that as soon as I knew that I was against Dr. Manhattan, I was like, I cannot win that second round because he is near indestructible. There's nothing that he doesn't have. He has everything. How do you beat the person that's got everything?
Yeah. But that was, you never know, for a kind of, and especially for a new player in this game, my friend, that was such confidence. I was so waiting for just the literal, you just go and finding a mic and just going dump. Right, hold on. I'll use
It
mine.
came together for me pretty well. I'm going to stay humble, but I'm pretty pleased with that.
Yeah, he done really well. Normally, like everybody knows that I love to get to the tiebreakers for this round because I love the final round because it's the one that gets a lot of people like thinking. And so sometimes I'm like, maybe I could slide this. Maybe I could maybe justify it slightly. That was just a straight squash.
Yep.
But it was literally just like a bug. Sorry, Kev.
I accept that.
Yeah, definitely. One apiece. He has come out swinging like Rocky. Unreal, my friend. He did not get beat. He got mad. And he got even. So we will now move on to the third and final round. And oh boy, I am really looking forward to this one now. If that's what you brought for the second round, Christopher, I'm really psyched. This round is universal significance. For anybody just tuning in, universal significance is where if we take this character out of their respective universe, how would that universe cope without that character? So, Christopher John Stephen, if we took Dr. Manhattan out of Watchmen, and there's just all the rest of them, like Ozymandias, like Rorschach, just all them left over.
Okay.
How do you think the impact would be? What do you think it would be? What is Dr. Manhattan quintessential to Watchmen? If so, why? If not, also why?
Right. Well, I've pondered this for quite some time, and I've already gone on great lengths about the sort of scientific applications of sort of what he's worked towards. I've gone. I've slammed the fact about his abilities and powers, and I've already sort of postulated that maybe he's not actually evil and he's just sort of a bit misunderstood, but he's happy to take that mantle of villain. And throughout all that sort of character building and how we relate to the character, there's one really shining thing that comes through when you talk about Dr. Manhattan, and that's the fact that he's naked.
Oh my God, that was amazing. One thing I've got to ask, do you think that is anatomically correct? That guy had like a dong that was
when he's naked, I mean he's naked.
Yeah.
There's no decency filter about it. There's no anything about it. The man is naked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the main take home for anybody who listens to this podcast is that he's naked.
He's a naked blue man.
It's not to do with anything like that. I mean, basically, I've already said it. The man has supernatural abilities. He sees the past, present, and future at the same time. And to be fair, he did wear a leotard for a little while, but then it just sort of dawned on him over the course of his omniscience and omnipresence that I really don't need to wear clothes. And that's fine. And, just thinking about the applications of it, the whole thing from Watchmen starts with, and, you might not have seen Watchmen, but you'll be familiar with the start. It's one of the best starting movies of the best starts to any movies ever. You've got the Bob Dylan track. You've got all this stuff about superheroes and how they were, at the pinnacle and the sort of heyday of America, and then eventually it gets all just sort of beat down, and they say they don't need supers anymore and they don't need masks, and eventually becomes federal law that it outlaws costumed heroes. And the word's right there. It outlaws costumed heroes. He doesn't have a costume, and therefore he can help because he's naked.
He has done more work and more good and bad naked than any of us have done fully clothed. And that was something that I actually was not sure about, was if he could actually wear clothes or not. I had a feeling there was something from what I remembered, but yeah, you clarified it for me. You'll have clarified it for the rest of the audience as well. I
mean, don't get me wrong. He does it to be polite when he's being interviewed and sort of maybe in front of the president, although apparently Richard Nixon did get a very big suntan from just being in his presence. But, it's the fact that he doesn't need to wear clothes. And I think we should all respect that.
Yeah, I think it's a real baller move when you can just be like, I'm naked, deal with it.
Absolutely.
And in fairness to him, he's relatively ripped as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's...
I mean, most guys at that point would just be like, I could just let myself go. No one's going to bother. I could just snap them out of existence, essentially. All good. Who cares if I've got a beer gut? Who cares if I've got a beer keg? Who cares? He takes the commitment to work on his six pack. And I always remember the line. It was like where she said it was like licking a battery. And I'm like, only in Watchmen could you get away with saying a line like that, and everybody could actually go, I wonder if that's the case. It's like, I mean, is that what it's like when she's giving him a blowjob? Well, I mean, that was where my brain went to. I was like, licking a battery. What's the shape of a battery? Oh, is that a BJ reference?
It was.
I mean, like I say, there's only one sort of sex scenes described in the movie and in the comic book, and he gets in trouble for it because he's omnipresent. He can be doing lots of different things at the same time. And I watched that, and I should have been thinking about the moral implications and how that would affect the relationship. And to be fair, I just thought, cool, that'd be a time saver.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, mine would only take about if it was just that straight up act, it would be a minute. I don't think it's time to work after that.
Do you think what you could get done in that time? You could have 2 Walls micro sausages done at the exact same time.
That's true. That is very true. And also feckin' hilarious.
If that clinches the argument because you get a sponsorship from the sausage people, then so be it.
I would love if that happened. Just I could be like, this episode of Super Giants is sponsored by the sausage people. Just deliberately, or if that was the case, I would actually get you saying the sponsorship. Just because that this episode is brought to you by the sausage people. So yeah,
other microwave-based pork products are available, by the way, folks. Just to make that clear.
Yes, they are indeed. We do not discriminate against the pork product. We are not Jewish.
I think we're going along the sideline of pork products, and we should be actually fair enough. Keep along with that.
as you realise, tangents, we embrace them here. There is no judgment for tangents. We are okay. One of the episodes.
I'm sure Kevin's got an argument that you'd like to present.
Yeah, of course.
We'll get there.
Yeah,
don't worry.
We do get there. Remember in the episode with Mark McFarlane, and we just wound up talking about the Orville for a good 30 minutes before we got back into the arguments. That was just something that we all needed it. Sometimes we just need a good tangent to get it all out, and that's what we do. Ironically, like Dr. Manhattan,
you get it all out. That's why I should win this round, because he's naked.
That is one of the that was a curveball. That was a very good curveball. Also phrasing when it comes to that sentence. So right, Kev, if we took Dr. Otto Octavius out of the Marvel universe, cinematic, comic, whatever, how do you think that would impact?
Well, like I said, he's one of Spider-Man's most well-known villains. He's fought Spider-Man the most amount of times. If you take him away, he's not got that many other villains that he can take down. He's easily taken down the other ones. There's only been like 1 or 2 that have given him more trouble than Otto Octavius, and that's the Green Goblin and the Hobgoblin. And Craven, who he's never actually beaten, he's just sort of sent on his way. But Otto Octavius is his main villain. You take him out of the MCU or any of the Marvel comics, it gets boring after a while.
But could this be a reverse Mr. Freeze argument that we had? Whereas Spider-Man is very known for having the Sinister Six. You take Doc Ock out, there's still 5 of them. And not forgetting the fact there's also ones like Morbius, Venom, Carnage. There's a lot. There are plenty. I mean, it's quite cruel that, you know, all these ones will want to beat up a teenager, but obviously they don't know what's under there. But at the same time, it's like there are so many villains that do what can what essentially you could take Dr. Octavius out and be like, there is plenty there. Why do you think if you took him specifically out, and not like, for example, a Venom, if you took Venom out, and said, oh well, actually, if you take Octavius out, that's going to be worse for you than Venom, because technically we have taken Venom out of the Spider-Verse, and we've coped fine.
Yeah.
So why do you think that Dr. Octavius is untouchable?
Because he is what Spider-Man could have been. Intelligence-wise, they're equal to each other. And Spider-Man Peter Parker actually strived to be the next Otto Octavius. That's what his goal was in life. He wanted to be Dr. Otto Octavius. And if you take Otto Octavius out, he's got nobody to look up to. And you've got your Norman Osborns and your Tony Starks, but he didn't look up to them as much as he did Otto Octavius.
That's very true. I mean, I don't know why I'm advocating, but you know, fair enough.
If he does make a good argument, that's the point.
Of course. And I think one of the most defining moments in the Spider-Man No Way Home movie, and spoiler alert if you haven't gone to see it, well, go and watch it on the internet now, I'm sure you can, is the fact that when, you know, the Tobey Maguire version Spider-Man meets up with Alfred Molina, Dr. Octavius, it's all pally, it's all friendly, and that just sort of, when it was sort of getting to the end and like they try to throw everything together, you see something like that, and just the one line of how you doing, Peter? You know, just getting along, making a difference. That, you know, hit me right here. So I completely agree with that. Even though I should be arguing against it, I'm going to completely agree with it.
Don't worry. As we say, I encourage the more kind of like a beta male argument where we can appreciate each other's arguments, but at the same time try and take each other down. Well, it shows us a level of maturity and intelligence that we have amongst this community, that we can respect each other's arguments. I mean, first, Kev, applauded your slam down. Most people would have been like, I'm humiliated, I'm out of here, if you were an alpha male. Kev rightly gave you your credit, gave you your applause, conceded.
To be fair, Andrew, neither of us know who wins yet, so let's just park that for now.
Specifically that round, that was a slam, so it was very well deserved. So we'll jump back to Dr. Manhattan. Obviously, if we take him as the person, as the naked guy was the main argument. He's the naked guy. We all need a naked guy. But if you take just that part of it away, I see blue naked guys kicking about Airdrie on a Saturday night. That's exactly. So
how all been there.
As long as they're the right color of blue,
yes. Yeah. Well, me and Kev went to Sneakies back in the day. We all know what that was like. But that also brings it round. So we have this one specific naked blue guy. I've mentioned we could see plenty of naked blue guys in the North Sea. But what makes Dr. Manhattan so different?
I guess it's because of the crossover appeal. Because let's not make too much fuss about this. Remember, Watchmen used to be on its own with regards to being a comic book. And Alan Moore did a wonderful job. Let's not, no question about that. But from that sort of humble beginnings, it's sort of gone full circle because it's now become part of the DC canon. And I think that's amazing. Just, you've gone from one maybe a bit niche sort of a comic book kind of thing to entire movie and TV franchise, but it's become part of canon and it's become part of comic book history, as it were, because, you know, when Dr. Manhattan decided the world would be better off without me, he left that universe, tried to find a universe a bit more peace, and he found the DC universe. Now, obviously, doing that, he gave birth to the New 52, so I'm not saying it's a perfect arrangement, I'm just saying.
I've got
It's made a difference in more than one universe.
Well, not only have you done like the first slam, you've also done the first shoot yourself in the foot.
Well, I like to be originating. That's what I'm here to
do. Your mark has definitely been left on Super Gens, my friend. You've had a slam and also shot yourself at the same time. It's something truly ginger. It's something we gingers do so well. We can hit you with the absolute boom, but then it also follows the bust. So you're living up to a good.
You've got to have the balance, man. That's what you've got to do.
You've got to, my friend. Definitely. So I will once again we'll do the 2 sentences to sum up your arguments. I'm actually really looking forward to hearing Christopher John Stevens one, because I know it is going to be brilliant. So to give him a bit of time to properly set up what will be a killer punchline, because I know him, it's going to be good. Kev, give us your sentences. Why do you think Dr. Otto Octavius should win in terms of universal significance?
Well, like I said, without Dr. Otto Octavius, there wouldn't have really been a Spider-Man, because he saw this guy, he strived to be him, and he got his words of wisdom for Uncle Ben, the great power comes great responsibility, and he saw Otto Octavius and Uncle Ben as his heroes. These were people he looked up to. Without Otto Octavius, I don't think he would have went into science. He wouldn't have been able to make the web shooters. He would just be strong and able to climb up buildings. And he wouldn't really know where to go with that, with the science behind it, because he wouldn't be into it really, because he didn't have that hero to look up to.
Well, a couple of things I can point out from that. One, also Aunt May has delivered that infamous line. And Otto Octavius was not around originally before the MCM crossover, as I call it. So he has survived without Otto Octavius. So there was a couple of points I could pick out there. Very interesting. Very interesting roundup.
Stark into that, I suppose. They put Tony Stark in for that, and I didn't really enjoy that.
He had already made the web shooters by that point, though. Got to say.
He had.
So that's an interesting one. Right, Christopher John Stephen, universal significance for Dr. Manhattan. Go.
What can I say? I mean, from humble beginnings as a nuclear scientist, through an act of love, he's become a nigh omnipotent, nigh omnipresent, nigh omniscient being, and that sort of moved him from canon to canon, from universe to universe. So if I could sum that up in just a few words, I'd say he's everywhere and he's naked.
Yes. Yes, I was hoping it would end on something like that, a great punchline, and you brought it. Yes. Well, even if you do not win the round, and it's a big if, because this is a really tough call for me. That last line was such a perfect line to go out. Fantastic, my friend. Right. I do have to be honest. What it is tough for me, but not for good reasons. Christopher John, you shot yourself in the foot. Given the credit where credit's due, which we do encourage, but at the same time, you also followed up quickly with a shotgun blast to your own foot by mentioning the new 52. Which is not regarded in the best of terms. But Kev, again, your closing arguments, the fact that I was able to pick a couple of holes out of that straight away, got to say, like your strongest closer. Well, I have to admit, again, love these both. Well, I have to call the arguments as I see it. Well, I think we were just on such a high from the start. It was like Kev started really strongly. Well, and then we had the iconic Nick Cage slam. This will now be iconic. It will be, if I figure out how to clip, that will be clipped. Well, and socialed everywhere because it was so good. Well, so it's probably like me having sex with my wife. I came too soon. Well, it's probably along those lines. Like we got to the climax too early, and it was kind of we were in the cuddle phase. Which I don't mind the cuddle phase at all. But eventually during the cuddle phase you fall asleep, and sadly that's what happened. We fell asleep at the closing argument. Well, again,
so at that point you want the sausage. So sorry.
Yeah. Well, again, we can get other pork-based products are available. Well, and again, if I do get any contacts from any of those, you are definitely doing the sponsorship ad, my friend. Well, so yeah. Well, sorry for any of the people that watch us and go, "Oh, Andrew's such a nice guy. Why did he do that?" I have to call it as I see it. It shows my impartiality. It shows that I am taking these arguments on board, and I am not a complete kiss ass. If I have to call out, I'll call out. And I'd rather that they respect my opinions than think I'm just being a total kiss ass. I can be a kiss ass, as I've stated, but yeah, it was a bit of a downturn. Because I have to say, Christopher, I really thought that you had it in the bag when we got to this point. I thought, right, he's on a flow here. This is going to be a smackdown. But you shot yourself in the foot next time. You really did. You really did. I don't know, maybe but you had some great points. Naked will be clipped. Definitely, if there's a way to get people to clip that, because he's naked. He's
a giant naked blue man. I mean,
yeah.
What more do you need to say?
Yeah, but again, if you see an orange walk going past Airdrie, that's generally what happens.
Yeah.
That was one. Kev. Because I was able to get the points from your closing arguments, and the fact there are so many villains that could take his place. Got to say, the rebuttals for it weren't as strong as your previous rounds, but you did give it a good fight. I've got to admit, but based on the arguments, I will have to say that I go with Christopher. But only just. Only just. It was so close.
Commiserations, Kevin. That was a close fight.
It was close. It was very close. Very, very close. Sadly, not because the last arguments were so good, but because they were so shit.
Well, man. But you want to take the rough with the smooth, but
you've got to, my friend. And like I said, it just shows I do not play favorites in this game. I'm a man of my word. I have to do it. But don't let that take a downer on any of the moods, because the rest of it was fucking amazing, guys. I mean, honestly, barred that round, that is honestly one of the best laughs I have had doing this Vicious Villains. Seriously, it's been amazing. We are starting to come up on time, sadly, because of pesky Zoom. Damn you, Zoom. I don't like you. But I can't afford anything else yet. So yeah. So Christopher, tell my audience where they can find you for your comedy. As we have just established, you are one funny motherfucker.
Sure. So I'm on Ginger Ale Comedy on Facebook and on Twitter, so you can come check me out on that and hear about sort of shows I'm doing and sort of where I'm next. So if you've got time, come and check me out.
Definitely. So Christopher, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me, and commiserations, Kevin, once again.
That's fine. It was great. It was a great argument.
Yeah, it really was. Until next time, he's Super.
And he's Ginge.
And we're out of here. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.